Apple just made a secret move that could completely destroy Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse, and no, it isn't the Apple Vision. Although that is certainly a component to creating a virtual world, there's something that Apple did that no one really talks about. But before we get into that, the metaverse, what even is it? Well, we know it's not the real world, but it's also not the digital world. Instead, it's more of a combination of both, like a 3D digital version of our physical world. Mark Zuckerberg is under immense pressure from investors to become more innovative in the communication space. Since the launch of Facebook, there's been very little organic innovation within the company. What I mean by that is Facebook isn't creating any of its products or services on its own anymore. Instead, it's acquiring companies like Instagram and WhatsApp to do the innovation for them. One of these acquisitions was a company called Oculus, which, as we know today, builds VR headsets to create immersive experiences. The company was founded by Palmer Luckey in 2012 when he was just 16 years old. And after a few short years, their headsets got into the hands of Mark Zuckerberg. And when he tried it on, he said this is, quote, one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Shortly after, Mark Zuckerberg did his thing and started conversations with Palmer Luckey to see if Facebook could acquire the company. Although Luckey was initially hesitant, he soon sold the company just a month later to Facebook for $3 billion. Mark then used this to his advantage to rebrand his company to Meta and spent over $13.7 billion to make this digital world a reality that people would use. But all this we just talked about is Mark Zuckerberg's vision of the future. Tim Cook and Apple's vision is very different. One that will completely revolutionize the computing industry, and here are 3 things they are doing to accomplish this goal. First, let's start with iPhones. Since 2007, Apple has sold roughly 143 million iPhones every year. Yes, this data is a little bit skewed from some of the iPhone 6 era, but still, it's quite a lot of phones. And when you compare that to Meta's Oculus headsets, they have sold 20 million in around its entire lifetime. Now, it is very important to keep in mind that these numbers are not directly comparable, as they're completely different pieces of equipment. But it does show Apple's vast scale that they have in the market. And one of the additions to Apple's new phones shows it's really taking the threat from Meta seriously. The addition was this small little black dot here, which started with the iPhone 12 Pro series. This black dot is known as a LiDAR sensor, which, if you watched my previous video, you would know that this sensor enables you to create a 3D map of your world. Why would this be useful? Well, although Apple claims it's for seeing more realistic models of objects, say, in your living room, there's actually a way bigger reason. Data. One of the reasons Tesla's self-driving cars are some of the most accurate in the world is because they have successfully trained their own models a decade in advance compared to the other EV competitors who still didn't think that type of technology would even catch on. The same goes for Apple. With these sensors being in the hands of over 100 million people, Apple is able to start training their AR software before they even released a headset. This would enable them to do things the Apple way, meaning when they eventually did release it, it would not contain the same bugs and errors as maybe some of the other competitors, and that's exactly what they did. On June 6, 2023, Apple unveiled the Apple Vision at WWDC. And although it seems small, it really hints at the totally new product category Apple is inventing here. They call it spatial computing. The headset starts around $3,500, which, although is super expensive, it's jam-packed with more technology than any other consumer tech product on the market. This headset has 2 screens, one for each of your eyes. Each screen has a resolution of 4K per eye, or 64 times the pixel density of an iPhone, much higher resolution than a Meta Quest Pro. And basically what this means is the image looks exactly how you thought it would, not highly pixelated with motion blur, but rather something that looks and feels like a pro device, as it should with the price tag. Now, all this is great, but here's the real driver. Apple's not creating a metaverse. In fact, it doesn't think it'll work. Although Mark Zuckerberg is very invested in it, the retention rate for some of the digital worlds Meta has created, like Horizon, is as little as 10%, meaning most Oculus buyers will purchase the device, use it a couple of times, and 90% of them will never use that digital world again. And that's because there's no pull. See, with apps like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, there's a pull to connect up with your friends or learn more about VR through this video. But with a virtual world, there's no reason why people would want to go back into it. And Facebook can keep throwing money at this problem, but it just won't solve it. The market has spoken. They want immersive experiences, but they don't want to be fully in a digital world. Apple recognizes this. In fact, they never mention the word metaverse in their entire keynote. Instead, they call this tech spatial computing. Instead of creating a virtual world or metaverse competitor, they're creating one that you've already been in, just better. You can still see your office, talk with real people, and not have a big disruption where you literally can't see anything in a VR headset. This full immersion from VR headsets like the Meta Quest could actually be detrimental to our mental health. Look, Instagram is just an app on your phone. You can close it at any point in time, delete it at any point in time, and never have to look at it again. But still, 32% of teenage girls said that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram just made them feel worse. And I think that problem could actually just snowball if we're completely immersed and separated from reality.
They have the data that show that they harm teenage girls, and they just don't fucking care. And I've been in the room with Zuckerberg. I've watched him lie to the president of the United States about what they know internally versus like the claims he spouts out loud. Like, I think that guy is just is a really bad negative force for the fucking planet. There's no doubt about it. And like, I won't mince any words. And when I see him in person, he gets a fuck you from me.
But they're not going to do anything about it, because as long as you keep coming back and they keep getting advertising revenue from you, that's all that matters. So now let's get into the hidden things Apple is doing to win over Mark Zuckerberg. First, I think it's important to start with AirPods. You might be wondering, how does that have anything to do with AR? Well, AirPods introduced spatial audio in June 2020 during Apple's WWDC keynote. And spatial audio basically works to create a more immersive audio experience. The head tracking mode is able to use head movements to detect and use that data, if they so choose, to help with the development of spatial audio like they advertised with the Apple Vision. In combination with AirPods, Apple has also acquired a number of AR and VR companies to make their vision, pun intended, a reality. There are a couple that kind of indicate where Apple is going. First, they bought VRvana in 2017, which had been working on a mixed reality headset. Then, just a year later, they bought Iconia Holographics, which makes lenses for AR glasses. And then most recently, a day after the Apple Vision came out, they announced that they acquired Mira, an LA-based AR startup who Johnny Ive, Apple's former chief design officer, was an advisor to the startup at one point. And by adding sensors and acquiring other AR tech companies, integrating it into their existing products, Apple is able to take advantage of their massive customer base. Globally, only 20% of people have iPhones. But in America, Apple's market share for young adults is 70% of the population. This wouldn't be a problem at all for Mark Zuckerberg if Apple wasn't so damn popular. Once you have a network that's so dialed in, it's extremely difficult to get people to change their behavior. That's one of the reasons why we rarely see new social media apps pop up. Meta is asking people to change their behavior, to do new things that they never did before in a new environment. Apple isn't. Instead, Apple says, we know what you want to do, and we're going to make your experience better and easier. Why wouldn't you say yes? Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe for more videos and stories like this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.